two things control the quality of your life. That was a statement by Tony Robbins that kind of shocked me, and that was something I've been talking about for a while. I want to have this as my first post, my first topic on my channel. Let the data decide. And quantifying this, what does that mean? Controlling meaning and emotion, he says, are the two most impactful decisions and ways you engage them that will have the most impact on your life. And just to give some clarity to and power to what Tony says, he actually scientifically validates everything. Yes, he has a lot of enthusiasm and rah-rah around his events, but it is real and it's scientifically backed, just to give him further credibility if people don't know him or maybe haven't seen the depth of what he's done in behavioral systems and changing how we respond in life. But what does this also impact? This title of this post is "The Data Decided Where Happiness Really Comes From." And I think this how we think and how we act is critical to the quality of our lives and our happiness, and that this is controlling meaning and emotion, which Tony brought up, which is just such a fascinating subject. And as I called it on the previous screen, this is arguably the most important topic, and why I'm starting with it on this channel. On this channel also, I will talk about, just staring here at item number 2, I will talk about, for us, using AI, adopting it, the positive quant and qualitative impacts it can have on personal lives and businesses. Talking about adoption, talking about AI being your teammate, talking about some of these future topics. Today, though, as a starting point, it certainly makes sense to talk about the two things that control the quality of our life. First, I want to go into this as the focus of this channel is to use data only, to not use opinions, to not use gut emotions, to not use what I heard somewhere, but to use studies as a basis. The two parts we're going to go into today are what is quality of life defined, and then B, what is happiness, which actually means the quality of life times meaning. And 90% of it is based actually on how we act. Let's dive in. The definition, the quality of your life. I'm going to talk mostly today about the physiological part, meaning happiness, stress level, life satisfaction, even fulfillment. And then down, if you skip to the bottom, I'm going to try to do this on every slide, skip to a couple of key points to remember, because you may just be listening to this, you might not be seeing this presentation actually, but controlling time and decisions and how things affect us. There are multiple domains, as you can see here on the left, of how quality of life is measured: physiological, social, economic, health, physical, environmental. And these quality of life metrics that this is a summary taken globally, which is pretty sad and shows the opportunity to really improve. My gosh, as a human species, really, I mean, 5.5% life satisfaction globally. That's sad and actually scary, and I hope there are some ways to try to make impacts if we mobilize across communities, etc. But a happiness score of only 6 out of 10, that's basically a D-, almost a F+ in school grades context. That's bad. It seems like a lot of negative emotions versus positive, it shows here, are impacting that. Meaning and purpose, only 63% see that in our lives. That's sad and something to note. 29% say they have work-life balance. That's also something that we hope could be improved. But happiness equals is an equation. I was trying to figure out, how do you define happiness, because it seems almost way too qualitative to put something on it. But this is the definition that I saw multiple times, which is that happiness equals quality of life times the meaning assigned to it. And this description was really great, I thought. It says basically, life is your stage, and then your subjective interpretation writes your script for your life. And then another quote from Tony: the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. I think that's a really simplified way to just think. If you're hearing this now, your quality of life is the quality of your emotions. How you behave and respond. We all have challenges with that among family members or friends or business drama or politics or community members, or maybe a difficult neighbor or situation, or etc. We all run into these things, but how do you best optimize your life or respond to all these things? Quality of life, this other quote: quality of life builds the structure, happiness fills it with meaning. You can't have lasting happiness without basic quality of life, of course. That's something we all struggle for, to just get to survival and get to hopefully comfort. But it's the story about your life that defines how happy you are. And we all have unique stories that we should get fulfillment from, we should be proud of, we should constantly work on, because life goes by fast, as I'll talk about here soon. So how do we get this 90% of happiness is defined by how you respond, or not your circumstances? Those are only 10%. This is actually the logic chain, which is pretty fascinating. Genetics, basic where you're from, where you're born, how you are. Your circumstances is only 10%. That's the situation you're in. Your intentional activities, thinking and acting patterns, it's called. The idea here is that 80 to 90% of felt happiness is being shaped not by external factors like situations, but how you operate. Now, with who are the happiest people is interesting because you just in thinking of yourself, myself, others, how we should all be. It's actually the happiest people are people with the deepest relationships, not necessarily wealthy or have material status or some list of achievements, but meaningful connections predict lifelong satisfaction more than income or fame or anything else. I thought that was interesting. Also, gratitude and clear goals boost happiness by 10 to 20%. And one that was cool also was even just exercising in nature boosts happiness as much as doubling your income. That's I know it's pretty surprising, but I think something to think about. Volunteers get 7 to 10% higher satisfaction from helping others. I think that's something we all could involve in our life. But what determines happiness? Some more of the data. There's this genetic set point, life circumstances, intentional activities I mentioned in that equation. 90% though, in summary, the thing to remember, 90% of how we think and act about it, meaning life, is really fundamental. So just hammering on that point because I think it's something we all need to constantly think of, even daily. Even down to the minute at sometimes, especially when we're challenged. Look at how this changes though during life. We're actually happier, or at a 6.9 scale out of 10 between 18 and 29. We're optimistic, and then that drags down through middle life to a 6.2, to a 6 in the 45 to 59 years, then a 6.8, and then up to 7.1 again over 75. It's interesting how most people don't realize until they're between 60 and 74 that they don't realize their expectations should be aligned with reality. That's something for all of us to think about. And these scores certainly should be higher. We all should strive for that. But this mindset of happiness is, Tony's done a lot of research on this and others, but the idea of literally building happiness circuits, or how your brain reflects actually thoughts and emotions and how you respond to them, is really important. This idea of reappraisal, meaning the same thing can happen to different people, and then the suffering or joy is determined based on their personal meaning. If someone tries to make a sales meeting or make a sales call and they get rejected, some people might think, well, they made their best effort. Some person might take it personally, and those are totally different ways to respond, and one's actually negative, one's very positive, for example. But I think even trying in relationships, you at least tried, versus looking at it as some personal shot or slant on your character. But this idea of reward loops, but a positive motivation and positive effect, there's been proven studies on that, the way you respond to things, or it having a positive effect on you, and that being a certainly elite type performance factor, really in for athletes and for business athletes, for sports and business. But I think the important part here is, again, always try to highlight the most important part in red scribble here underneath it, is what it means to you. What happens determines your happiness by what it means to you, not just by some external force, but how you interpret it. Just in summary, I hope this is meaningful to you. I thought this was really important for Tony to come up with this, with all the many thousands or hundreds of thousands of man years and research put into this whole topic. He and others, not just him. I just have him here posing because it's his quote. But in trying to control our meanings and emotions, we can maximize and improve our lives. You have any comments, please make them. I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly did in bringing this up, even with friends, colleagues, over the last months since I've seen this topic. But hope you thought it was useful, and please subscribe and join. Thank you.